touted advantage of capitalism is that if a problem exists, a product can be made to fill the need, put out on the market, and used to fix the problem without any need for any regulatory board. It's as if an invisible hand guides the marketplace. This can be extended to commercial sponsorship of art, where a brand funds an artist while banking on the artists themselves, promoting the commercial product. Shows like Transformers, He-Man, Power Rangers, and My Little Pony are examples of shows created as a vehicle for selling toys, having value both as entertainment and as commercial promotion. This likewise has the advantage of superseding any kind of regulatory board, as on state-run entertainment venues like the BBC, CBC, or PBS. Market-driven entertainment is guaranteed to produce material of some value because funding is dependent on cultivating an audience that can be attracted to commercial promotion. If there's any kind of controversial element that would make a state-run venue hesitate before allowing, based on nebulous notions of harm or indecency, commercial entertainment can be more progressive and usher society onwards into the future. This is the advantage of Carmilla being sponsored by You by Kotex. Young women will always need menstrual products, so a menstrual product company like Kotex serves that need. Carmilla serves as a marketing device for them, attracting a market of young lesbians to their products. This enables Smoke Bomb Entertainment to push cultural boundaries in centering lesbians and one non-binary character, at a time when non-binary roles were virtually unheard of. They can pretty much do whatever they want as long as they succeed in cultivating an audience of young, assigned female at birth people who menstruate, and then lead them to Kotex's products.
Student Health Services is giving away free samples of these puppies, which definitely offer the right kind of protection. They have this 3D capture core thing that really works.
However, commercial-driven entertainment also creates a situation where artists become restricted by their sponsors. Any entertainment that might hold profound artistic value, but challenges the core dynamic of cultivating an audience to which products or services can be marketed, loses value to its corporate sponsors. Joss Whedon came afoul of this a few times when his socialist messaging proved threatening to sponsors. Buffy Season 6's portrayal of fast food work as gross and demeaning led to fast food sponsors threatening to pull their funding, and Whedon was ordered by his bosses to cut it out of future episodes. And the reason why his Wonder Woman script never got off the ground was because he portrayed corporations as evil, and a studio executive took offense. When Kotex saw the fan backlash to Carmilla Season 2, an internal fandom drama that resulted in a threat to their sales, they were wary of funding further seasons. Smoke Bomb scrambled to appease their corporate sponsors, and tried to make it clear that they could cultivate an audience and sell them Kotex products. How they went about this was to structure Season 0 from the ground up as a commercial, emphasizing their audience's need for menstrual products and using extremely overt Kotex product placement to direct them to buy Kotex products.
We're surrounded by a mountain of pads and tampons and what are those? Thong liners.
Around this commercial, they made a plot to appeal to the lowest common denominator of Carmilla fan. A ridiculously shallow, almost mean-spirited distortion of the characters we love, throwing a wrench in continuity, and creating disturbing implications in the name of appeasing the fans. This is the worst entry in the Carmilla series. Sponsored by Kotex. Carmilla Season 0 is the third season of the Carmilla web series, sandwiched between Seasons 2 and 3, the confusingly named fourth season, as a prequel-style flashback. After the extremely serious tone of Season 2, the writers wanted a lighthearted, comedy-heavy break to let the viewers take a breath before continuing to the dark third act. This was plotted out well in advance. However, the opportunity to make another season at all was put in jeopardy by the backlash fans had to Season 2. The writers were making Shakespearean art, with tragic deaths and exaggerated angst, and the majority of the fandom just wanted a goofy adventure with hot girls kissing. The character growth of Laura and Carmilla went unappreciated when they were just supposed to be a cute couple to fulfill a shallow lesbian fantasy.
Kiss. Kiss, 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 kiss.
Killing off Danny was widely regarded as spitting in the face of the fandom. Making Laura and Carmilla break up was obscene. As a result, Kotex started to get wary. They weren't sure they were going to fund any more Carmilla content. Then some stupid high school drama made it worse. A teenage girl got mad at another teenage girl and decided to hurt her by getting her favorite show cancelled as a petty act of revenge. Writing to Kotex that because they made Carmilla, she would tell as many girls as she could not to buy Kotex products.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Alarmed, the Carmilla creators urged the fanbase to buy Kotex products and tell Kotex that they wanted more Carmilla. The fans started #SaveCarmilla, where they would buy Kotex and contribute to the fandom with fan art. Kotex relented, and Season 0 was made a few months after Season 2 in the fall of 2015. But a consequence of the controversy meant that the season needed to revolve around marketing. Main series writer Jordan Hall doesn't write this time. Instead, transmedia and Kotex commercial bonus videos writer Ellen Simpson takes over.
Simpson, eh?
In my opinion, she is the lesser of the two writers, not being able to integrate her conception of the characters well with what Hall established, and prone to exclusionary lesbian politics. In addition, main series director Spencer Mabey was replaced with Mars Horodisky, an award-winning comedy director and noted possessor of a uterus. I suspect she was hired for more of the latter than the former, though I imagine she came across as a good acquisition for the former as well. Kotex probably insisted on a director who had first-hand experience of menstruation. As a result, both main creatives on the work had less familiarity with the characters and their emotional development. This combines with overcompensating from the backlash to Season 2 and plotting the season around marketing to turn Season 0 into a hot mess with clumsy characterizations, a complete absence of emotional weight, transphobia, and an anti-feminist consumerist theme disguised as feminist empowerment. The plot has the sentient library manipulating Laura and Carmilla to get them back together. The library functions as a stand-in for the audience shipping Holstein. That's their ship name, Laura Hollis and Carmilla Karnstein, Holstein. And it delivers the Holstein content to us, the viewers, in absence of Laura making her vlog. It leads them to a Silas storage room, so Laura can watch VHS tapes of Mel, Perry, and Carmilla dealing with the campus disaster in 2012, 2 years before Laura matriculated to Silas. It ends with the revelation that Laura and Carmilla are soulmates, reassuring the fans that Holstein is in-game, and getting the two of them to realize that they need to get back together because they're literally meant for each other. Simpson dispenses with the idea of character growth. Magic removes free will and makes the characters exactly what they should be, which is exactly what the fans want them to be, because that increases Kotex sales. The brand of humor Simpson utilizes appears to be derivative of two sources, Joss Whedon and Ariel Scarcella. Scarcella, the lesbian Tucker Carlson, is a profoundly influential lesbian YouTuber whose detrimental effect on mid-2010s lesbian culture has yet to be fully appreciated. She passed off intense biphobia and transphobia as wholesome liberalism until her 2017 dispute with Riley Dennis made the broad public realize what a raging transphobe she is. Before embracing the far right, her content was a mix of celebrating gay culture, empowering young women, and comedic videos about these concepts that showcased her politics. Often these videos revealed some deep-seated hatred of bi or trans people that was passed off under "It's comedy! Stop being so sensitive!" Simpson's writing here appears to demonstrate both Whedon's fast-paced reference-laden dialogue and Scarcella's silly wink-wink nudge-nudge wholesome lesbian camaraderie that blatantly ignores the standards for respectfully talking about trans people. This comes out in the 2012 Perry talking about LaFontaine before they came out to her as non-binary. She dead names them, misgenders them, and tries to use magic to exploit them, without this being framed as horribly unethical. Aside from this last aspect, which I'd call Season 0's answer to Laura torturing Carmilla in Season 1, and Maddie keeping slaves in Season 2, It all could be said to be perfectly logical if one were to set it before La Fontaine comes out in 2014. But I think that represents an insensitive framing disrespectful to trans identity, both that of the character and of the trans audience members. Perry already represents a continuity discrepancy in her 2012 characterization as into pagan spirituality, so I don't see a compelling reason to not depict La Fontaine as out, and Perry as at least trying to gender them correctly. Or even rewrite the thing so it's Laugh and not Perry. As it is, it's just kind of disrespectful. The season opens with Laura and Carmilla stuck in a storage room. Kind of a classic sitcom trope. Every time they try to leave, the library warps reality to keep them from going into another room. Less of a classic sitcom trope. All doors lead to the same place. Laura works out that she needs to watch old VHS tapes, and she and Carmilla settle in to watch. It really banks on the nostalgia of VHS. It gives me flashbacks of The Ring. Though it's a little ambiguous, I get the impression that this isn't Laura's vlog this time, and is instead the library filming them and showing it to us, because the library is a fan like us. I hardly have to zoom in this time, because the library zooms in for us, eager to capture the moments of fan service, and of course, product promotion.
Thong liners.
Sponsored by Kotex. Laura turns on a tape, and then we see what she sees, because the library wants us to see it too. All of Silas is presumably getting this feed. The dean is probably getting annoyed. Or maybe she's a fan, and is watching in hopes that they'll kiss. Who knows? We're in silly territory now! In 2012, a magical disturbance hit Silas during a Zeta frat party, resulting in a Zeta member acting like a chicken. Like literally. He starts crowing like a rooster, and otherwise moving like he thinks he's a chicken, before collapsing into a coma.
Why the hell are you dressed like a chicken?
The dean identifies two likely perpetrators, Mel and Perry, and sends Carmilla to torture them for information. She lets them stew in the torture chamber for a while, what became the storage room in the present, and we get to know 2012 Mel and Perry, who are quite different from their modern counterparts. Mel is an anxious, timid, and kind of whiny nerd, and Perry is a weird neo-pagan who is obsessed with the idea of getting to experience the paranormal, while having no idea that it has tangible reality at Silas. The former is actually based on actress Nicole Stamp's speculation about Mel once being timid.
I think my character's backstory is that Mel probably wasn't always as comfortable being outspoken as she is now.
And the latter is just Simpson's arbitrary change from Jordan Hall's established canon that Perry was always obnoxiously mundane prior to being possessed by the dean.
Parallax normal. She's been that way since we were kids. She used to play monsters, and she would pretend to be the monster's mommy. And wouldn't it be nice if we brushed our monster teeth and did our monster homework?
The two of them inspect the torture chamber, which has very atmospheric set decoration, and also Kotex products.
We're surrounded by a mountain of pads and tampons and what are those? Thong liners.
Sponsored by Kotex. After some time letting them sweat, Carmilla enters in a badass leather ensemble for lesbian sex appeal. It works. She's basically the dean's enforcer here, but because 2014 Perry was slow to believe that Carmilla was a vampire...
There's no such thing as vampires. She's a light-averse octogenarian with an extreme hemoglobin deficiency and really good skin.
2012 Perry can't see or demonstrate any vampire powers, so 2012 Carmilla is instead a brute who vaguely threatens physical violence, but like she's just a human. In contrast to every other portrayal of her. It doesn't even make sense because the flashback ends with Perry embracing denial, so she could just as easily deny Carmilla being a vampire. Honestly, aside from fan service, there's no reason why this enforcer character should even be Carmilla. Season 0 would work much better if Perry were La Fontaine and Carmilla were Will. But of course, they have to appeal to the lowest common denominator, because there has to be fan security, because they have to be able to buy Kotex products. Carmilla is portrayed as sort of a corrupt cop in a noir. One of her lines rephrases a quote from Sheriff Don Lamb in Veronica Mars, a character representing that archetype.
Why don't you go see the wizard? Ask for a little backbone.
Aw, look who asked the wizard for a backbone.
I've seen all of Veronica Mars.
Her allowance of 1 hour to solve the mystery, about the total runtime of Season 0, recalls the 48-hour opportunity to solve a mystery in the buddy cop movie 48 Hours. Her threat to break Perry's fingers also calls to mind Vampire Willow in Buffy Season 3 Episode 16 Doppelgangland, who's kind of a gang leader. Carmilla also has Kirsch prisoner in another room, and he was a lot creepier in 2012 than he is in 2015. He has this flamboyantly evil look, arguably more so than the actual villains. And he says rapey things about Mel being into the chicken guy's boundary-violating flirtation before he mysteriously started acting like a chicken. Laura and Carmilla discuss this in the present. It's implied that his crush on Danny turned him into a better man, essentially fulfilling the role of Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, which contradicts both his characterization in Season 1 and the underlying theme of Season 2 that changing out of love isn't a reasonable expectation or a healthy narrative. Season 0 completely distorts and simplifies established canon to appeal to the lowest common denominator. The Mr. Darcy transformation is a popular trope that young women are into, so Kirsch is now a Mr. Darcy archetype. Sponsored by Kotex! Mel and Perry persuade Carmilla to give them some time to try to solve the mystery, and they examine the facts. They soon determine that there's more going on than the chicken guy. More Zetas have had animal transformations, their heads turning into that of bulls and pigs. And it turns out that every woman on campus has stopped menstruating for the past 3 months.
I had wondered where the administration had stashed these when they took them away.
What is referred to euphemistically as the Red Wing migration, as well as a number of other wacky metaphors.
The disappearance of anti-flow, the fact that there are no beets in this here salad, no tomatoes on the taco, no ketchup on the burger. Finale of Shark Week.
No-go on the Crimson Horde. Crimson Tideless.
The redcoats aren't coming, the red tide.
Oh no! Now there's no need for Kotex products! This is a disaster! In 1992, science fiction author Connie Willis published a short story called Even the Queen, from a phrase about even the Queen menstruating. It's an example of feminist science fiction, imagining a better future for women where menstruation has been cured. A drug has been developed to alleviate the suffering of all women, where once women had to suffer monthly for several decades.
What surrogate mothers and anti-abortionists and the fetal rights issue had failed to do in uniting women, the prospect of not having to menstruate did. Women had organized rallies, petitioned, elected senators, passed amendments, been excommunicated, and gone to jail, all in the name of liberation. Men were against it, mothers said, getting rather red in the face, and the religious right, and the tampon manufacturers, and the Catholic Church.
In this world, the protagonist's daughter wants to join a group of radical feminists called cyclists, who believe experiencing menstruation is essential to their nature as women and abstain from taking the drug. The protagonist is concerned and impresses upon her daughter what a great value the drug is to the lives of women worldwide. However, the daughter must learn for herself, so she goes off the drug, experiences menstruation, and can't stand it. She goes back on the drug, and she, the mother, and her grandmother all laugh about women who think that suffering like their ancestors did makes them more in touch with their feminine essence. It's a vision of a better world, and it's at odds with the reason companies like Kotex exist. So, can't have that.
I personally wouldn't mind if this is the forever finale of Shark Week. It's just one less hurdle to jump over in my life at this school, which is very stressful.
Oh, no. If something is messing with the natural order of things, then I don't like it one bit.
When a product isn't needed, capitalism will create a problem so it can sell you the solution. Or in this case, maintain an existing problem. And it can't be a one-and-done solution. It must be something that can be bought again and again. Naturally smelling breath wasn't considered a problem until marketers realized that they could demonize it to sell people mouthwash, which they must buy again and again to deal with a recurring condition. Light bulbs used to last virtually forever, until capitalists realized that they could sell products with a limited lifespan, manufactured obsolescence, to force customers to perpetually buy their products. Cigarettes were pushed on the public under a variety of misleading advertisements to get customers addicted so that they would then perpetually buy their products. Virginia Slims infamously took advantage of the feminist movement to imply women would be empowered to smoke their cigarettes, using slogans like, "You've come a long way, baby. It's a woman thing," and "Equality comes with no strings attached," thereby getting women addicted so they would perpetually buy their products. Carmilla is supposed to be a feminist show, and Season 0 is framed as having a feminist message in its depiction of menstruation. The season revolves around marketing Kotex as a brand, and it outright demonizes the concept of Kotex ever being obsolete.
If something is messing with the natural order of things, then I don't like it one bit.
The need must exist so that Kotex can sell the solution into perpetuity.
Men were against it, Mother said, getting rather red in the face, and the religious right, and the tampon manufacturers, and the Catholic Church.
As a result, it takes the cyclist position, frames it as feminist, and demonizes the idea that stopping menstruation might be a good thing, ostensibly because it's anti-feminist, but really because the season exists to market Kotex, thus effectively reproducing the harmful condescension of Virginia Slims ads. Simpson tries to cover their bases, with Mel kind of appreciative of the Red Wing migration, and Perry arguing that everyone should have the choice whether or not to experience menstruation. But what gets hammered in is that menstruation is natural and good.
The natural order of things, the primal forces of nature, the natural order of things. The natural order of things.
The natural order of the universe.
The liberation hasn't freed you, the docent said loudly, except from the natural rhythms of your life, the very wellspring of your femaleness.
Fundamentally, it presents the need for Kotex products as a feminist value, which is transferred onto Kotex products themselves. The framing suggests it is feminist to menstruate, feminist to buy Kotex, and Kotex itself must be feminist because it sponsors Carmilla, a feminist show. It's an insincere commercial with underlying radical feminist themes. Perry is effectively framed as a radical feminist who essentializes the female form as inherently tied to menstruation. When she misgenders LaFontaine, she comes off as a big old TERF. That combined with the comedy showing signs of derivation from Whedon and Scarcella, who I would also characterize as TERFs, gives the whole season a TERF vibe. It's basically a TERF show, sponsored by Kotex. They question Kirsch, and there's some back and forth. Carmilla suspects both of them of wrongdoing, and there's some reason to doubt their stories. It turns out that Mel was being malicious, playing a prank on the Zetas, but not having anything to do with the chicken guy. Kirsch shares an overheard prophecy about the Silas women's menstrual blood being stolen to power magic, ultimately leading Perry to speculate that the culprit could be vampires.
Ooh, what about vampires?
No, it's not vampires.
But with all the blood, you think that makes obvious
Not
sense.
vampires. Moving on.
Well, you know what? Actually, vampires don't really jive with all the barnyard stuff anyway.
Thank you.
Carmilla totally intends to use thumb screws on Perry, but she can't find them. Instead, Perry tries to do a spell to determine what supernatural entity is behind this, which Carmilla casually backs out of when she realizes that it might expose her, which is a riff on a similar scene in Buffy Season 4, Episode 14, Goodbye Iowa, in which Tara sabotages Willow's spell when she thinks it might indicate that Tara is a demon, which might have been something the writers were playing around with at the time. It's emphasized that Perry is a parallel to Willow from Buffy, as a Jewish girl who came to embrace the idea of being a witch, and she also waves a wand around like a character from Harry Potter. Hermione, maybe? The specific spell she attempts, and ultimately fails at, in which everyone lights candles from their positions around the building, resembles one that Willow attempts and fails at in Buffy Season 2, Episode 19, I Only Have Eyes for You. Also, Kirsch wears menstrual pads as a garment in this scene, which makes no sense but promotes the product in a fun way. Reportedly, the actor walked around town like that for funsies. When the spell fails, Carmilla antagonizes Perry, exposing her insecurities. Carmilla touches Perry's back in a way to show that Carmilla is the one with the power, that she doesn't respect Perry's boundaries, and implies that she will torture Perry should Carmilla decide to indulge her sadism. It's an interesting bit of vampire kink. playing up Carmilla's viciousness, but without any actual intimacy, keeping Holstein as the only ship in play. It's a shame they couldn't take risks, because Peristine, I'm just making that up, makes thematic sense. Perry is compared to Willow, and Carmilla is compared to both Vampire Willow, Willow's evil doppelganger who has the hots for her, and Tara, Willow's girlfriend. Playing up the vampire kink as a potential what-if pairing in the past would potentially stimulate the fandom with a diversity of fanworks, even if Holstein is in-game. But of course, they had to play it safe to pacify Kotex. Carmilla threatening Perry also motivates Mel to make progress solving the mystery to protect her. Things accelerate when Kirsch starts turning into a donkey, and the Dean starts turning to stone, thereby saving them from having to cast another actor. Perry figures out that what they're dealing with is a character from A Midsummer Night's Dream, Titania, the Queen of the Fairies. Actually an Irish goddess named, I think it's Tua, but they pronounce it Tithia, so I guess that's canon. A goddess on Carmilla? Wild! Tithia was trapped in a bloodwood tree, but it seems like someone must have released her in exchange for a wish. Perry's initially into the idea of meeting a fairy, because she likes fairies based on the Disney version, but Carmilla emphasizes that Tithia is extremely dangerous, and will kill everyone to remake the world in her image.
Oh, but look how lovely they are. I mean, they couldn't possibly
They're drinking out of human skulls.
It's probably just artistic license.
Fortunately, whoever released her has the power to trap her again. Perry ultimately admits that she accidentally summoned Tithia. The bloodwood containing her was a statue used for a paperweight, a reference to Giles using the Orb of Thessala as a paperweight in Buffy Season 2, Episode 21, Becoming Part 1, and she stole it to use in a spell, a reference to Dawn stealing a talisman in Buffy Season 6, Episode 7, Once More with Feeling, the musical episode, to keep LaFontaine from leaving her behind by going to a school for the more technically inclined. This is a riff on two different Buffy plotlines. Xander summoning the musical demon Sweet in Once More with Feeling to make sure that he and Anya got a happy ending in their relationship troubles, and Willow using memory-erasing magic to control her girlfriend and friends in the same episode as well as the following episode, Season 6, Episode 8, Tabula Rasa. In the case of the first, it doesn't even make sense in context, but is minimized so much as just an excuse for the musical mayhem that it kind of works anyway. However, it doesn't work as well in Season 0, where there isn't quite the same contrived extravagance to make up for the weird plot point. As for the latter, it's just an example of Willow being abusive. It's just straight up abuse. She's called out on it in the show. She acts like a villain there. It's a whole big thing. Perry is framed as irresponsible for unleashing Tithia on the world, but her attempt to control Laught's life frames Perry sympathetically without acknowledging her manipulative behavior as abusive. Meanwhile, Mel's arc centers on her feelings of inadequacy over not making it into the Summer Society, like her mother and grandmother. The two of them are warrior women, and she's a timid nerd. She tries to show some backbone in pranking the Zetas, and it just leads to Carmilla threatening to torture her. When Carmilla turns her sights on Perry, Mel's desire to protect her starts to see her assume some Summer Society values. She may not be a warrior, but she can defend someone. In the climax, Perry performs a spell to trap Tithia in the statue again. Tithia shows up, sort of. The actors look off screen, and green light is cast on the set, while an augmented voice speaks. Seems Kotex skimped on the special effects budget.
Why, hello, little ones. Here I've found you at last. Isn't it just wonderful?
I was not able to find out who voices her. Perry pauses the spell to address Tithia, and Mel steps up, yells at Tithia, and encourages Perry to continue, finally showing assertiveness. This is actually starting to be a good depiction of character growth, showing the transition from her initial timid state to her 2015 warrior woman state. So, can't have that. Tithia tries to buy each of them off by granting them wishes, so she turns Mel into the warrior woman she wants to be. That's right, no character growth allowed. You just have to have a sudden transformation because a fairy queen showed up. Deus Ex Machina. When Mel gets confident, she takes her hair out of a tie and takes off her glasses. Both are thematically used to represent things keeping her in her quiet nerd role, but glasses are actually a disability aid. They aren't a weakness in themselves, but an improvement on human weakness. It's a form of ableism, similar to Goonies depicting the use of an asthma inhaler, as a character flaw, keeping someone from their full potential, because they're a timid nerd. And this one is tied into the nerd makeover trope, where a beautiful actress is portrayed as unattractive because of glasses and hairstyle, only to magically become beautiful when these are changed, as is featured in The Princess Diaries. Next, Tithia grants Carmilla's wish, to meet her match, her soulmate. That's right, no messy will they won't they? Holstein is written in the stars. Whether or not Maddie was lying or Carmilla just likes poets doesn't matter. There is only one person in the world for Carmilla, and it's Laura. It's interesting as a parallel to the kobold that Laura and Carmilla faced in the transmedia, who foreshadows their relationship problems in Season 2, while here, a fairy foreshadows them getting back together in Season 3. Ironically, this did not create stability in the fandom. Instead, everyone freaked out because they thought it was saying that Laura didn't even exist prior to this wish, and so they're freaking out like, how could you make Laura not even really be a person? Ah! Simpson had to step in and explain what she meant to convey. You know, explaining what you write. Never a good sign. No, Tithia just makes Laura go to Silas, where she otherwise wouldn't. Tithia then speaks to Perry, urging her to agree to join Tithia in the new world that she creates as a faithful companion, promising all sorts of magical adventures. Now, it's been heavily implied that Tithia is evil, or at least holding a morality system incompatible with human prosperity, so it can be reasonably intuited that Perry wouldn't want to be her companion. There is a strong possibility that Perry would end up as some kind of slave, but Perry is stupid in 2012 because the plot demands it, and doesn't see the obvious danger. It takes Tithia indicating that she'll kill LaFontaine in the process to get Perry to reject it.
In order for me to be special, Susan loses everything?
Our heart's desires do not come without a price.
This seemingly indicates that all of the wishes come with a price, including the one in which Laura comes to Silas to be Carmilla's soulmate. That would be the normal way to interpret that, as foreshadowing for some dangerous later event where somehow a price must be paid for these two to meet. But no, it was just bad writing. Simpson never meant to imply there was any danger to Holstein. Perry completes the spell to trap Tithia, and Tithia shows her and Carmilla the face of the universe.
The universe is balanced on the back of a giant koala! Why is he smiling? What does he know?
Perry is shocked with Lovecraftian terror, while Carmilla watches with all the nonchalance of a demon seeing the time knife.
Yeah, the time knife. We've all seen it. Let's get back on track, bud.
This is what shocks Perry into embracing the idea of being normal and in denial of Carmilla being a vampire. Yeah, it's not great writing, even before factoring in how LaFontaine indicated that Perry has always been obnoxiously mundane. Everyone gets 3 months worth of menstruation. Yay, they can buy Kotex now, huh? Throughout the season, there are little intermissions, with Laura and Carmilla displaying the same kind of lightheartedness of Season 1 to reassure fans that, no, these two are not going to be lost in the darkness of Season 2. However, it's weird in context, because Laura just killed Vordenberg a few days ago. She should still be in shock, with the goofy antics providing a contrast. But she's not. She's just buoyant and having a good time. She kind of looks like a sociopath. So much for that character growth! Meanwhile, Carmilla is embarrassed by the footage of her acting like a satanic fiend. But it's okay, because Laura knows that Carmilla has changed. You know, that oversimplification that led to them breaking up in Season 2? That's canon now. Oversimplify everything, or there might be a fan backlash. It ends with them deciding to show the tapes to LaFontaine because they'd want to see Perry pre-possession. You know, when Perry tried to use magic to manipulate them. A very creepy thing that everyone just ignores. The season ends on a high note. when the library releases them and they enter another dimension with the Japanese fox demon. Okay. Tonally, Season 0 is weirdly lighthearted for something so cemented in the horror genre. Carmilla is heard beating up Kirsch in the background at one point. Mel and Perry are trapped in a torture chamber where Carmilla totally intends to torture them, and Mel breaks down in tears, but in a way where we're supposed to laugh at how whiny she sounds.
We got a university representative with a torture fetish, and then you with all the magic, and it's just... It comes off as a bit cold and mean-spirited. Bad things happen, but the creators are so terrified of fan backlash that the mood never comes down. So everything is framed apathetically, where people's suffering is just funny.
I could see whose fingers take the longest to break. Let's see what you have to say after the thumb screws.
Now you listen here, Red. You spill the beans or it's the comfy cushion for you.
It can be compared to when Mel tries to kill Kirsch in Season 2, which is funny in delivery.
When I got back to the campus, I thought it was safe, so I went to grab a brew and chillax. They shot my beer, man!
But ends with an ultimately respectful framing, with a more serious climax where Danny defends him as Mel angsts.
How many of us did they hurt and humiliate every year? Huh? Thousands? Hundreds of thousands? Don't you want justice for that?
Of course I do. But Kirsch isn't responsible for any of that.
Carmilla is extremely derivative of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and its comedy is at its best when it follows Whedon's example of contrasts between lightness and heaviness. Some of the funniest Buffy episodes have extremely sad parts, but that just gives the buoyant parts their oomph. Of course, Whedon got it from William Shakespeare. It is a tried and true means of creating strong comedy in a dark setting. But we can't have that in Season 0. There might be a fan backlash. So nothing is taken seriously, so everything falls flat. Sponsored by Kotex. Being beholden to a corporate sponsor damages the integrity of the art. The writers aren't allowed to make anything that takes risks. As a result, everything is kind of meh. Nothing goes far enough to be interesting. They hold back on the kinkiness, they hold back on the drama, they hold back on deep characterizations, they hold back on anything that could challenge Hallstein, and everything suffers as a result. Kotex comes along with their own agenda. They mostly allow Smokebomb to do what they like, but aren't keen on the transgender element, as represented by the non-binary LaFontaine. In the specific commercial segments released as bonus videos, they insisted on maintaining their brand identity as strictly for young women. Simpson was not allowed to indicate any gender other than female could make use of menstrual products, and some trans men took offense. Season 0 was structured like one of these commercials. Had menstruation featured as an essential female experience tied into the natural order, and LaFontaine was repeatedly misgendered, while there was no nod to how trans people relate to menstruation. Trans men menstruate, and trans women don't. There is no suggestion that this magic that stops menstruation might be used to alleviate dysphoria, because the natural order must reign supreme, which is only necessary because there's then a market for Kotex products.
They've upended the natural order of things, and the universe is trying to set everything right again.
Characterizing the appreciation for menstruation as feminist is a shallow radical feminist take, turf biological essentialism, demonizing trans people as going outside the natural order. Perry basically dog whistles turfdom because it's advantageous to their corporate sponsor. I think Simpson isn't very good at writing trans-inclusive media anyway, and then she doubled down on that because of the restrictions Kotex placed on them. It's similar to the first episode of Supergirl, depicting Kara outraged that her boss gave her the name Supergirl. When Kara sees being called a girl and not a woman as anti-feminist, and she gets a condescending lecture about how actually it is feminist.
Doesn't that make us guilty of being anti-feminist?
What do you think is so bad about girl? I'm a girl. So if you perceive Supergirl as anything less than excellent, isn't the real problem You?
It's not that the Supergirl writers have contemplated the issue and determined that the name is the most feminist. They just have to call it that because that's the brand identity, and corporatism demands that they come up with a justification for it. To emphasize the problem with letting Kotex control Season 0, it's now practically an example of lost media. While Verve Girl, now Kinda TV, hosted the first episode on their channel, Kotex hosted the other 11 episodes as part of the promotion. In 2020, they decided that the Carmilla Season 0 promotion was over, and they privated the original videos. They're gone. If one fan hadn't decided to edit all the episodes together and post it as a single movie, it would have vanished from the internet for all time. Art should not be fettered by corporate whims. Sponsored by Kotex. You've come a long way, baby.
Love will have its sacrifices.